Trump signed the declaration to enable access to funds for building a barrier along the U.S.-Mexico border. Almost immediately, a group of state attorneys general and the American Civil Liberties Union announced they would challenge Trump's declaration in court. Democratic legislators Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Julian Castro said they would sponsor a joint resolution in Congress to terminate the declaration. But on Fox News Sunday, White House advisor Stephen Miller suggested the president would veto such a measure.
He's going to protect his national emergency declaration, guaranteed.
Congress has a short window of time to challenge the president's declaration. Democrats would need a supermajority in both chambers to override a presidential veto. Ryan Bank, NPR News, Washington.
Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe says Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein was absolutely supportive of the decision to launch investigations into whether President Donald Trump was inappropriately aligned with the Russians or whether he had in any way obstructed justice. McCabe, who's making the rounds promoting a new book, also says he believes the FBI had good reason to investigate whether Trump was being influenced by Russia following the 2017 firing of FBI Director James Comey. A summit between East European leaders and Israel has fallen apart. The summit was canceled after Poland pulled out today. As Terry Schultz reports, Warsaw announced its boycott in protest of comments made by Israeli leaders about Polish complicity in the Holocaust.
This summit will now just be meetings between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Czech, Hungarian, and Slovakian counterparts. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki had already downgraded his country's representation to his foreign minister after Netanyahu suggested last week that Poles cooperated with Nazi Germany in the Holocaust. Then on Sunday, Israel's newly appointed interim foreign minister Yisrael Katz repeated this and said he could never forgive and forget it, going further to quote former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir, saying every Pole suckled anti-Semitism with his mother's milk. Morawiecki called the comments racist and unacceptable and canceled all Polish participation. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz in Brussels.
The Federal Aviation Administration has confirmed to a number of media outlets it's looking into whether discount airline Southwest accurately calculated and accounted for the weight of checked bags on its planes. As part of a year-long civil probe, FAA documents apparently found significant mistakes with employee calculations and luggage loading procedures. Getting calculations wrong can be a serious safety concern. The airline, however, is contending it's addressed the matter and has called on the FAA to close its investigation. U.S. financial markets are closed for the President's Day holiday. This is NPR. Things are slowly returning to normal in Haiti after more than a week of protests and violent demonstrations. People were lining up there to buy food, water, and gasoline. Public transportation was again running. Crews were cleaning barricaded streets where tens of thousands of Haitians were calling for the resignation of President Jovenel Moïse. Angry over escalating prices and allegations of government corruption, Moïse has refused to step down, though over the weekend the country's prime minister said some government budgets will be cut by as much as 30%. A court in the Maldives has ordered the former president who's charged with money laundering to be jailed for the duration of his trial. NPR's Lauren Frere has more from Mumbai.
The ex-president of the Maldives, Abdullah Yamin Abdul Gayoom, had been out on bail, but prosecutors argued he could attempt to influence witnesses if allowed to stay free throughout his trial. The Maldives is a chain of islands in the Indian Ocean, famous for luxury resorts. Yamin is accused of embezzling funds from tourism development projects. He testified that he had no idea how $1 million mysteriously ended up in his bank account. Yamin is not the first politician from the Maldives to end up in jail there. His half-brother did time, and so did one of his predecessors, after trials widely criticized as lacking due process. Lauren Fryer, NPR News, Mumbai.
Sources close to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe are refusing to say whether or not he nominated President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. The Japanese government's top spokesperson said Japan highly values Trump's efforts on North Korean nuclear disarmament, but declined comment on the potential nomination. I'm Jack Spear, NPR News, in Washington.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
I'm Denise Prydmore, and my guest tonight is Mike Ricksecker from Haunted Road Media and many other YouTube channels, and he's got 3 shows on YouTube, and he's also the host of Haunted Road Media Paracon that's coming up. I would like to say hello to everyone in the chat, and please, if you have any questions, please reach out and ask the questions. and because I know Mike's willing to answer them. We've got just less than an hour left to go of the show, so I know we've got a lot of things going on. So, so you're working on a book. You're working on getting other books published. You're working on some presentations for all these paracons that you've got coming up. And you're speaking at most of these paracons as well, aren't you?
Yeah, most of them I do speak at, yeah.
So are you also going to the one down there in Dogpatch?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I've heard a bunch of people are going and some other people aren't. We weren't planning on going because we were supposed to be gone that week, and now our plans have changed. So we're trying to figure out if we're going to go or not, because, a lot of our good friends are going, Coyote Chris and Dan Williams and a lot of good people. But
yeah, it happens to be the weekend after the event at OSR. So it's a lot of travel. It's a lot of travel to be in one part of the country one week and then another part of the country the next, and I have to work in between there. So
yeah, I know that's one of the things that the good part about bereavement is that you get time off of work. The bad part is you have to go back to work.
Right.
And I realized today how much I didn't want to go back to work.
Yeah.
Got a lot of things I'd like to do instead. So I'm going to ask you some of those normal questions we haven't asked yet. For the people who haven't listened to the show before, how did you get involved with the paranormal to begin with? I mean, I know there's been a lot of things I've read all your books, except for the fiction ones, or whatever. Except for the books that aren't based in real life. I haven't read any of those. So, how did you get involved in this to begin with? I mean, we all have a catalyst. What was yours?
Right. Well, I've kind of touched on it a couple times here. The big one for me was that shadow person experience when I was about 8 or 9 years old. There were a couple other minor things that happened before that. It kind of set me down that path to knowing, okay, it seems like there's stuff going on that's almost Scooby-Doo-ish, because you're that young. That's what you're related to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all did.
Yeah. But then when that happened with the shadow person, I was like, okay, there really is something seriously going on here. So I remained very interested in it after that. Started reading some Hans Holzer, thanks to my mother. But unbeknownst to her, she set me down that path. And that was as a young teen, around 13 years old. My first little investigation, and I didn't realize at the time that's what it was when I was 15, and it was at a friend's house. So it's just kind of it's a culmination of a number of different things, and it's something that's always been with me, for years and years and years. And even, it's not like today where you might, a younger person might get into it because they saw some television shows or they saw some videos online or they, saw a website or whatever. We didn't have that back then.
No.
It just didn't exist. And so it was, the little things that were going on, whether it was at home, around town. I mean, even that house that I moved into when I was 13 years old, there was a shadow person there, at least for a little while, first, couple months that we were there. Things that were going on around town, stuff that maybe your friends talked about. Usually it was like legends and lore of the areas and stuff like that. But it was always something that piqued my interest. And then when the internet came about, and you started connecting with other people and, getting into some of those old forums and bulletin boards and stuff like that, then that kind of really accelerated the direction in which I was heading. I'm
older than you, so I know that the internet did not exist, and finding out about this stuff was a lot harder.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the 70s than it is now. Nowadays, you can just type it into Google and get the answer. Or, you had to learn the Dewey Decimal System and how to find that darn book in the library.
That's right. Use your card catalog. Absolutely.
And I mean, I had that sucker memorized. I knew where to find that book, no matter where it was in that library. The librarian would come to me and go, "Do you need any help?" I was like, "Nope, I know right where it is." The Baltimore County Public Library had nothing on me. So I knew where every book was on ghosts and anything paranormal related. I knew where to find it. So it shocked the daylights out of those poor people. And also newspapers. I knew how to research microfiche before I was 11 years old.
Nice.
And a lot of people today still don't know how to search microfiche for anything. So it's not as easy as Steve Deshabi makes it look.
No, you really have to put in some work.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
and
back then.
Right. And now it's expensive to do some of the stuff that we used to be able to do for free.
Right.
In the library, so people need to understand that. We do have a question for you from Carl from Caldwell County Paranormal. He asks, what equipment do you use to do your radio show software or equipment?
Oh, as far as the broadcasting, yeah. So I have a Shure microphone. I have a mixing board. I use OBS for the software. Use the same camera that I use on some of the investigations, the Canon SL2 for the camera. I got a little lighting kit that I use, a little overhead light. I think that's about it.
Because I know for investigations, you guys don't like to use a whole lot of equipment other than your cameras.
So as far as the investigation equipment, yeah, we keep it pretty light. We have some different cameras that we use to film what we're doing and try to capture different things on camera. The audio recorders. We'll take along an EMF detector, like a K2 or something like that. We do utilize the SLS camera. That's really the extent of it. We have some motion detector lights that we use, which sometimes you might get a little bit of hit with that. Yeah, we keep it pretty light.
I was going to say, because I know that when it comes to ITC devices, no, it's a big no.
Nope, don't use those.
Nope, because you have to go home with Shayna and she might hurt you.
She might. She might.
So it would be really interesting to because I know that she doesn't like those. She's more old school in her way of investigating. Yeah,
she's definitely more old school. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to the ITC devices, and we have an Inside the Upside Down episode out there about why we hate the ghost box. And it's not just because they're loud and obnoxious, which I do believe they're loud and obnoxious. Because, you put if you do something like hook it up to a portal device, it'll take a lot of that white noise out of there. But we had Justin Brown on our show a few weeks ago. And so he was kind of like getting into the nuts and bolts, of how, that's basically, piping it through some, guitar pedals, pretty much. But right. Even, when we broke it down, a few months ago, it was, I just don't believe, for a radio to be able to pick up, a signal and be able to, to receive that and be able to, modulate it and spit it out through the speaker. It basically, the ghost would have to be talking as a radio signal. And I just don't believe that's the case.
I have no signal unless I'm on the radio.
Yeah. Or the other way around, the other aspect would be, if they're actually, piecing together, the bits and pieces that are coming across the radio, they'd have to know ahead of time what those bits and pieces are to be able to, put a word together. And I just don't believe that either. So, yeah. I have my opinions on it.
It's the thing is there's so many opinions out there. And what I have issues with are the boxes that have pre-programmed words in them.
Well, yeah, I don't, like the Ovilus or whatever. I don't see how, for one, I don't see how a ghost would be able to, or a spirit would be able to go in there and pick out a word from a microchip and, and put it forth out there. I've been on investigation before where, I'm playing around with the Ovilus. It's not doing a whole lot. I started switching between modes, and as I was switching between modes, it would kick out 2 words. And I'm going back and forth every single time.